Yep, sound should be switched on, and I should be. Yeah, that was a good start to the show. Me talking with the mic muted, but it's been unmuted since. So I'll wait. Yeah, and now sound. Okay, I'll pause the stream in the other window then, and open up the chat window. I will keep an eye. Objectively sound now. The hazing has begun. I'll keep an eye on chat, and as usual, try and keep me sane and somewhat entertained in chat, because without it, these shows are much less interesting for the player, I feel. And well, since we've spent the 3 previous days talking about the one big chess event going on right now, I don't think much more needs to be said about Norway chess. In the first 3 rounds, Magnus is doing well. Everybody else is doing well, so. But there's still 6 rounds to go, so things could develop. And there's also Poikovsky going on, in which my good friend Jan Nepomniachtchi is so far playing exceedingly well. So if you're not watching that, that thing is a good addition to the calendar. I mean, it's been there for ages, but I mean, maybe you're not entirely aware of it. If you're not, head on over and have a look at the games. In terms of the decisive results, it's almost diametrically opposite to what's happening in Stavanger. There's a ton of decisive games almost every round. And with that, I think it's time to start playing some chess. I've had some requests from notable people on Twitter, so I will try to oblige them, but first I'll have to see them in the list. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at what we have. I'll start from the top, and then I'll have a proper look at the entire list later. And as mentioned, opening suggestions, general thematic suggestions are very, very welcome in chat. I'll try to oblige whenever possible. This is what I've been playing against the Caro-Kann for many, many years now, with almost no exceptions. I used to feel like I knew what was going on here. That feeling has, by this point, kind of disappeared, but I still have some idea. The most critical move in that position, instead of knight c8 that my opponent played, I believe is g5. g5 leads to very interesting unbalanced positions. Knight c8 is a plan that also very much exists, but I always felt that it's a lot more conservative and a lot less critical and easier to deal with. Although here I'm a bit confused as to what I'm supposed to do, because a5 he'll go knight c4 and I can trade one pair of knights, but this in general doesn't really favor white too much. Can try something fanciful like this, because this is a weird spot in the game where he cannot actually take on d3, because c takes d3 will capture this knight on c4. Yeah, some parrots in modern with the black pieces. This always ends up happening, chess player 007. I think even without people requesting it, it's extremely likely to happen. I quite like my position, because allowing bishop takes f5 in general is quite unpleasant for black. And this is now what we will have to demonstrate with moves. One thing I would like to stop is knight f8, e6. Huh. Yeah, maybe I was a bit hasty with the evaluation of this thing. Because if I now allow knight f8, yeah, let me try something. I'm not sure if it's any good, but I want to see where it leads me. I want to prompt him to play g6, and then I want to play e6 now. And then I want to drive, yeah, knight goes to f8, and now I wanted to start playing against this knight on c4. Although as I now realize, the knight can go to d6 and then to e4. So I probably overestimated my compensation here. One thing he shouldn't do is to take on. Yeah, I don't like this move. It might still be okay, but he leaves himself in a lot more positional danger, and also the knight on c4 is very, very likely to be stranded later in the game. In particular, b3 now is almost a winning threat. I think he needs to play queen f6 now, just to stop me from playing b3. But even after queen f6, I can play something like rook a4, re-establishing the threat of b3, and it feels like I should be doing very, very well. Rook a4, he has knight takes b2, which is kind of bothering me. Another reasonable question is, if I just go rook a2, how does he save the knight? And I'm not sure I know the... Oops, that was nearly a misclick. I guess he goes knight d7 followed by knight e5, and that is kind of okay for him. But only kind of. Because I have rook e1 here. And next move I will play b3. It's still quite sharp, but it feels like it works out for me. Yeah, this is the variation I calculated from some way away, and now it just feels like I need to be precise, and then I win. Then again, if the knight lands on e4 and I have no way to shift it immediately, I may be overstating my advantage here. But I don't need to take on h8 so early. I missed the fact that after bishop takes h8 he has rook e8, which is very regrettable, because I thought I was just winning here, and because of that maybe I'm not. That's a clever idea by my opponent, by the way. I have queen e7 check, but he takes and plays king d8. I should stop talking and start making moves. But yeah, that was... I will still win, but yeah, I could have played rook e7 check first, obviously. That was an interesting game, which I felt I played reasonably well from some moment on. But instead of bishop takes c5, I felt my opponent should have played something like queen c8 here, hoping to get knight d6 and then knight e4 in. I still have compensation. For instance, I can play rook e1 here, and I probably win this pawn on e6 back. But if I have to trade, a lot of pieces on the e6 square, my advantage will be obviously severely diminished. And let me just put my phone on mute. I thought I did that, but then apparently I switched the sound back on for some reason. Okay. Let's see what else we have. And as mentioned, Lawrence petitioned me for a game on Twitter. I don't see him, but I see Lawrence Trend, but that's not him, I assume. And I don't see the real Lawrence, so we'll wait. Maybe he'll show up. Are you playing an industrial warehouse? It sounds like it. No, we're in a very nice neighborhood here in Hamburg, but there has been some construction outside of our windows for the past 3 days, and this is what you're hearing. The building itself is very much not an industrial warehouse. It's a very nice building. Yeah, show Lawrence how chess works again. Exactly. That has been my life's goal ever since that one disastrous outing. I don't know what this is about. Is this a misclick or something? Because really, you just don't play h4 in these types of positions. I mean, leaving aside the fact that I'm now a pawn up for no particular reason, the pawn just doesn't belong on h4 here. My beard is getting grayer. I'm just getting older, theorist. This is why you are observing this effect. I am not a whippersnapper anymore. Some would argue that I never was particularly a whippersnapper, but that's a whole different subject. I'll play b6. It's not really necessary, but I would like to play d5 at some point, maybe later in the game, so I'll go with this. And now I'm kind of feeling unhappy about this choice because my opponent wants to play f4, and playing d5 and allowing him to play f4 and e5 is kind of one way I make my life more difficult. Simon Williams's DVDs recommend h4 in all positions, says Perpetual Stalemate. This is very true. This is very true, and who are we to argue with the wisdom of the red-bearded one? Yeah, it's a weird. It's one of those where I very often just go completely astray in positions like this because I'm like, it feels to me like I'm so completely winning despite only being one pawn up that I get distracted and I start playing poorly. And, you know, none of this is ideal, frankly. I'm still, you know, a very large favorite to convert this because there's really no counterplay. I'm basically better on every side of the board here. If he tries to open something up on the king side, it will be black who will be giving mate and not white. But, yeah, I kind of slept through about 10 moves of that game. Did not really pay any attention to what was going on the board. And that normally is not great, autopiloting to this extent. Even here, 5f4 may have been winning on the spot instead of king g7, but it's never a bad idea to secure your structure and just prepare for the final push. Objectively, he probably has to take on e5, but that just prolongs the inevitable. Doesn't change the course of the game. But if he doesn't take on e5, I take on g3 next move and I just crash through on the king side and give mate. Yeah, now it's just more or less mate. He will not be in time to do it again in this game. Bishop d4 check is... I mean, queen takes h4 next move will also win immediately, but bishop d4 check kind of gives mate with checks, more or less. Waiting for my opponent to accept the inevitable. And I got a very nice message in chat, which you probably don't see. No apologies necessary, he passe. But yeah, h4 was an unnecessary move which completely ruined a perfectly playable position. I have not seen the new Lost in Space. I don't believe I've seen the old Lost in Space even, so yeah, I'm very, very not in touch with the Lost in Space universe. Mr. Dodgy is on Twitch. It's reasonably easy to find him on Twitch. I know very, very little about this. I used to know a little bit of something about this position though, because there was a period where it looked like every single Chinese player in existence played this line with black. For some reason, I don't believe the line is particularly good, so I couldn't really understand why they were so horribly in love with it. But yeah, something like maybe 10 years ago, the Chinese, and they do like to have a kind of a mutual repertoire when like the entire country, or at least the top echelons of Chinese chess, and they obviously do work together. I mean, it's I don't think it's a particular trade secret that Chinese players do a lot of work together. And I'm trying now. I mean, I think they're supposed to take with the queen on d7. Knight takes d7 already surprised me, and I'm trying to punish this by playing as energetically as possible. But basically what I was saying is that very often it would appear that they have some kind of a training camp at some point, and they pick up a new opening, and then all of them start playing it. And they play it for a while, and sometimes they abandon it, and sometimes they just continue playing it forever, like with the Petrov. And here I'm just completely winning for, well, no particular reason. I mean, the Slav should not lead to positions like this. Yeah, and I'm just a full piece up here. So yeah, my opponent, I think theory, or at least theory when I still remembered it, started with the queen takes d7, e4, bishop h3, and black was kind of trying to prove that this is okay somehow. Knight d7 I was already not very aware of. But after bishop g6, if you play slowly and if you allow your opponent to play e6, bishop b4 castles, he will stabilize, which is why I played d5. But c takes d5 I think is a wrong reaction to it. You can maybe play e7, e6 in reply, not really fearing this change of structure. Or you could maybe go for something even more ambitious and play knight c5 first, attacking my pawn on e4 and then playing e6. So, yeah, a crushing victory from a line which is really not supposed to go anywhere near like this. Still no Lawrence as far as I can see. One of our quiz winners. Johann Wilhelm Möbius is... Okay, people were requesting modern and beards and things of that nature, so I'll go with that. What do I think about the knight c3 line in the Petrov Caruana is playing? You'll have to be more specific, Karsten, because there are tons of positions where white can play knight c3. I have seen Nepo Korobov. I have seen most of the games of the Poikovsky tournament. Nepo has been playing very, very impressive chess there. Very energetic, very well played in general, I think. Not entirely sure what I'm doing here, but... Would losing to Lawrence again make you give up chess? No, Garden Gnome, I don't think so. I think I'm made of sturdier stuff than this. No, I don't think he is better at Dota now than he is at chess. He used to be exceptionally good at Dota, but I don't think he's been playing much competitive Dota recently. Peter made me sub. I don't like b3. I think b3 is generally way too slow and just not part of White's plan in general here. I was not really planning to go knight c4. If you want to play bishop h3 next move, I can sort of understand it, but I still feel the pawn doesn't belong there. I think Jan plays, well, Hearthstone obviously, and he plays a ton of World of Warcraft. I don't think he is very much into Dota anymore. I could be wrong though. Playing some kind of a rope-a-dope strategy here, not really. Okay, if I can finally see what my opponent is doing, so I'll have to react to it. And it makes a decent amount of sense actually, but I'm just in time with my own counterplay, luckily for me. Because he wants to go h5, and normally I would reply to this by playing g5 and not really feeling particularly bad about it. But with a knight on g3, that would allow knight f5, and allowing the knight to land on f5 would be quite painful. Do I have any plans to promote cricket in Russia? Somewhat surprisingly, I've had offers, more than one over the years, to become some kind of an official face of cricket in Russia, or at least participate in the promotion effort. And some of these offers were basically, I don't like h5. I think this kills off White's entire initiative. Unless he wants to go knight f5 here, and then I applaud him. I don't think this sacrifice works. But it would be the one way to kind of justify playing h5, because you just kill off your entire king side by doing this. This, for instance, just feels wrong. I just need not to blunder knight f5 now and I should be fine. And in order to do that, I will kind of really solidify my situation in the center, move away the bishop from the g7 square. You know, even the endgame with the protected passed pawn or passer on the h file is probably quite good for me here, so I'll... Oh, that is actually kind of wrong, as I now realize. That is a very large mistake tactically. I still stand by my strategic assessment, but I blundered knight f3. And now after knight f3, I'm still okay, but I should not have allowed this. But what I was saying about cricket was, some of those offers were to become, I don't know, head of Russia cricket. That was ages ago. I don't think those still are on the table. And those I wasn't very interested in, because it kind of implied a very serious commitment in terms of time and energy, and I still was, and I still am right now, an active chess player. So yeah, why am I allowing knight f5 check again? Talking about cricket just makes me do really weird things. So those were not really, you know, particularly serious, and I couldn't really consider them in all honesty. But I also had offers to do some kind of promotional work, record videos or whatever. And I keep on really tempting him with knight f5 check. I don't know why. I should probably trade a pair of knights at some point to be less susceptible to those tactics. But even achieving that is not that easy. I wanted to go rook h6, f6, f4, but that would really blunder knight f5 check, so I'm going to restrain myself. No apologies needed. I mean, this is Banter Blitz. I am basically here to talk to chat while playing chess. But yeah, the whole queen g5 idea was probably completely unnecessary, and I kind of regret doing it. I missed a very nice little tactic here, but probably I will have it on the next move as well. Yeah, I can by doing this I can get my knight over to c3. And it's actually even stronger now because the pawn on a3 will be hanging. And if he takes, obviously I have this fork on c4 which collects a lot of material. I will play this match against Yu Yang, which I mentioned on air. This comes more or less immediately after Norway Chess. I fly to China from Hamburg without even going home. I will play Biel in July. This is the classical tournament I have on the schedule. Before Biel, I will play a very, very strong rapid tournament in Jerusalem in the beginning of July, but it is a rapid tournament. In terms of classical, I play Biel, and I don't know really what else so far. We are now completely winning, but in general, I think I did not play this game particularly well, and I think my opponent just played it way too timidly. He gave me, I think, way too much respect. And this is why my position is as good as it is right now. Kind of tempted to try and give mate here. Don't really see how, but didn't feel like simply taking the pawn on offer and not doing anything. Would much rather play against the king here. I don't think there is a World Cup this year, Miktal. I think the World Cup is next year, isn't it? Everybody likes the World Cup, but I'm pretty sure there is no World Cup this year. Yeah. The whole wheelie holding is one of the oldest and most glorious cricket memes in existence, obviously. Yeah, Footy World Cup I have even less interest in. It probably sounds completely wrong, but I seriously, despite it being held in Russia and some matches being in my hometown, I honestly have like pretty much zero interest in that tournament. I have grown so distant from that game that, and again I do this. And the reason I'm upset is that there are actually some positions in these lines of the English where it makes sense for you to go bishop h3 and not bishop g2, which is the annoying bit. No, I don't speak German. I should speak German, but I don't. I don't think playing e4 here makes much sense, because if you play e4 here, you have to be absolutely sure you have a good reply to knight h4. And maybe my opponent thinks this is a good reply to knight h4, and then I'm wrong. But and I didn't really consider d5 properly before saying you shouldn't be doing this, so that was probably a bit hasty. But I still kind of stand by my original sentiment. He was winning a full piece here by playing g5, though. He probably should have considered that option. Yeah, that was kind of my entire point. I felt that if you play e4 and you don't have a good move in reply to knight h4, then by undermining the black center with d3, I end up in some kind of a structure like this, which is the easiest way to describe it would be, this is like a Petrov, but black played f7, f5. And black really does not want to play f7, f5 in any kind of Petrov. It's really not good structurally in these positions to have this pawn on f5 instead of f7. It restricts your own bishop on c8, although it has now come out, but it's still not that great. Maybe I should have done better at not allowing it to even come out to e6, but I got somewhat distracted by my positional explanations. And it also makes the black king perpetually unsafe, which is a very, very relevant thing in these positions. If you imagine the same position with the pawn on f7, black is just completely fine immediately. There are no issues at all for him. But with the pawn on f5, I have a lot of hopes for my position. And b6 is a very, very, how shall we describe it, optimistic decision. Because I think knight g5 just wins material. Yeah, I thought he had to play c6, but his position, even after that move, would have been risky. Although he would be a couple of tempi away from more or less stabilizing by playing b5 and then knight a5, c4. But here, he more or less has to take on g5. I take, he takes with the queen, I take on a8. The rook on e8 is hanging, he has to take my bishop, and then I take on e6, and I end up being an exchange up and also and just completely dominating the board because I have control over the only open file. So yeah, this has to be just more or less completely game over. I don't really work on chess in any kind of systematic fashion. I mean, I never have, but when I do work, it's mainly openings. I'm not sure you're correct about these flying steps. I mean, it obviously is some kind of a calc from Russian, but I'm not sure if it's grammatically incorrect. Saying that we did something with somebody. I'm not sure if it's a mistake as such. It may not be the most perfect grammar. You could be right, but I'm not sure if it's a mistake. Bishop d7, bishop d5 check is, I should have mentioned that, but it's kind of mate in a few. Will Giri be Fabi's second for the World Championship match? I don't think so. I'd be very, very surprised if this happened. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's a large mistake, but formally you're probably correct there. Flying steps. And yes, it is influenced by my Russian, clearly, because in Russian it would be strictly the correct way of saying that. No, I don't think 3,000 incoming is true. I don't win enough per game to get there this show. I will also, I think, maybe after this game, maybe after the next one, I will start playing some lower rated people. Ah, the same thing with colors reversed. Okay. I'm not really, I don't know why I played knight f6, because what I wanted to play here was this bishop c5 stuff that people do, but it's a lot better with the knight on e7, because with the knight on e7 it allows you to go for a lot more ambitious setups, sometimes with h5, and if white goes h4 you can go f5, f4, whereas what I'm doing, it's perfectly playable, but it's a lot harder for black to develop any kind of serious initiative on the king side. And as you can see, I have already more or less given up on that plan, and I'm doing, you know, kind of conservative things instead. In terms of what I was sort of hoping to achieve in this game, playing knight f6 was already a very serious misstep. what I got is a perfectly playable position, but I was aiming for something different. I am probably not streaming Hearthstone tonight because we're going. A good friend of Jan's, who has become a very good friend of mine also over the years, is having a barbecue at his place, and we're doing that. This is very cute by my opponent. I have not seen that move, but it makes a ton of sense to me. Because he does not want to recapture on d4 with the pawn. If I play something like knight e4 here, which I might still end up doing, he has the option of taking with the knight, and then taking with the bishop, and then taking with the queen. And if I take on d5, I end up with the structure which black generally tries to avoid in these positions. This is a very cute decision, and kudos to my opponent for spotting it. On the subject of Hearthstone streaming, though, I was, and I still kind of retain that hope of using maybe the second rest day to do a co-op with Shady on his stream. I just don't like my position anymore. This is very, very nice by my opponent. None of the options appeal to me in any way, shape, or form. Bishop takes d4 is a way to get a stable, small advantage, and knight takes d4 I think is aiming for more, but I might be able to generate some counterplay against that. I think in general you're probably advised to take with the bishop and just take the small edge. Yeah, I do remember Theorist. And d3, I did consider it, but I don't think I have enough counterplay in the end there. Black Falcon. Yeah, this is the issue. I can go for a pin, but he just unpins himself immediately by knight takes e5. If I play bishop g4, he takes on a7, then takes on e5. And this ends up being quite nice for him. So I'm going with this because at least I want to get a heavy piece endgame where I feel like my chances to hold up higher. Yeah, those were interesting times, even before seemingly before the advent of radio, let alone video, where you read what was said in chat and then you typed out your comments, which slowed everything down very, very significantly. But still, there was a market for that, and that was my first foray into the world of chess commentary, and I still treasure those memories. I made some friends on ICC. Sandro Leonori, Leon with an asterisk, has become a very good friend. We visited his place in Rome some years back. My entire family went to his place for a full day. It was very nice. He's a great guy. We still keep in touch. Yeah, I thought I had enough time to play b4 here, but rook c7 just wins. Yeah, this position is a lot more annoying than I originally thought. Queen d4 was not winning a piece because that was kind of a trap, but I did not expect him to go for it because I take on f3 and then I go queen h3 and I give mate. I'll show it after the game finishes. I probably missed things. Yeah, I mean, you shouldn't be swearing. You know that, don't you, Theorist? Don't swear. Swearing is bad. No, I do not subscribe to that view. He was strict but fair. remains strict but fair as far as I know. He still works for them. Do I fancy training chess to a national team? Oh, come on, Galactic. You don't mean that. Stop with the Leon bashing. People in chat. I suspect this might happen eventually, Gambit 7, but not for some time yet. Once again, I have not entirely given up on my playing career yet, so I just blundered the rook, didn't I? Queen e3 just wins a full rook. I thought rook e1 was a blunder, but actually rook e1 is a very clever. Whoa, that's a huge amnesty. Queen e3 was attacking the rook on a7 and also protecting his material. So I think he just won a full rook by playing queen e3 there. And as usual, you spot these types of tactics the moment you release the piece. Like, I played rook d5 so fast because obviously I saw the whole idea from some way away, and I was kind of hoping he plays that. And then the moment it appeared on the board, I realized what was wrong with the whole thing, but it was too late. Luckily for me, my opponent didn't notice. It's getting a bit sharper than I anticipated, because rook c1 is a strong move. And after rook takes c7, he then will be able to play f3, f4 if I take on e4, and he will close down my attacking pieces. I feel like I still need to do it. Actually, if I take on e4 here, he goes f4 first, maybe. Which will be very, very annoying. Which is why I'll start with this move. I don't know why he gave this check. This feels wrong. No, this cannot possibly be correct. He should have gone either f takes e4 or f4. Actually, I would have had queen h3 anyway. I didn't see it yet, but hopefully I would have spotted it. So yeah, that brief point that people asked about in chat. Queen g4, I take on f3, he takes the rook, and I go queen h3, and next move is queen g2 mate. But here, queen e3, I think just wins the game on the spot. Yeah, that was a very large blunder, rook takes d5. Any desire to play in a WSOP event? Yeah, I've had that kind of a dream of burning some money for a while, but I always have things to do in the summer. And also I don't really dislike money to this extent. And to name a third problem, as if those two weren't enough, is the fact that I don't really like MTTs at all. I'm really not a poker player right this moment at all, but when I was exclusively a cash game player. Yeah, this is really, really old theory, which I haven't returned to in ages and ages. This, I think, was not supposed to fully equalize. At least this is how I was brought up, that this doesn't fully equalize, but maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, I think g5 is the main move. So yeah, my opponent clearly knows what he's doing here, whereas I'm kind of floundering, but I'm still not entirely convinced this is sound. This is very, very old theory, Buddha. This is like... this was explained to me, I believe, by my first very serious coach, Andrei Lukin, and he played the Rouser like in the... starting from the late 60s and into the 70s and so on. So yeah, this is kind of ancient history. What does it say about my mental state that I did not really realize that bishop takes b4 was a move that existed until it appeared on the board? It says nothing good. I will be a pawn up in an endgame which I frankly am very unlikely to win. Something like bishop e6 followed by king d7, rook c8. I think black almost always has enough here for a draw. Yeah, and what my opponent is doing is maybe an even more straightforward version of the same. Yeah, this is just equal. I'm not even remotely better here. My queen side is way too weak for me to do anything. Yeah, and that cost me 5 points. After queen a5 here, there is a way to kind of tone it all down by playing bishop d2, but after f4, some very old, very strange theory goes like this. And in this position you're supposed to play something like knight b5, black takes, you take on f6, black goes bishop c6, you play h4. I've won some very nice games in this line 20 years ago, but I obviously don't remember anything at all from that moment. And I would have a lot of fun trying to reconstruct what I think about this position from vague snippets of memory. Okay, some lower rated opposition, as promised. Let me just scroll through chat, see what I missed. At what age did you become GM? I became GM at a very, very ripe old age of 18. In current climate, I would be considered a very, very backward child. Very happy to be given a chance to transform this into some kind of a Sicilian. Yeah, it was perfectly normal in those years. I wasn't, it wasn't a prodigy type age to become a GM, but it was sort of standard. Something like 16 to 18 was considered to be good if non-spectacular. Yeah, I'm sorry about this game, but yeah, I can't really not take the queen here. I didn't mean it as some kind of an indictment of people who are not GMs but by the age of 18. And please don't take this in that spirit. What I meant is I did end up having a reasonably decent chess career. But these days, people who are expected to have a very decent chess career, they are all grandmasters by 14 or 13 or, in some cases 12. And in these terms, somebody who is only GM at 18 would probably by this point be quietly but politely informed that, if at first you don't succeed, parachute jumping is not for you, and things of that nature. And yeah, I mean, you should not be taking what I'm saying here as some kind of a guideline for your careers, people. I really hope you aren't doing that because, first of all, most of what I'm saying is at least half in jest. And secondly, there are obvious exceptions to this even now. But, I'm just kind of giving you some perspective on what is considered, standard for very promising young players. And I was considered a very promising young player in those years. I mean, I was always like mentioned in the top 5 of my age group, I believe, in Russia. And this is a really large pool. So people generally thought I might have a future in the game. And yet, becoming a grandmaster at 18 was perfectly normal in those years. Whereas now, for kids who are touted as, potential challengers, they're all 2700 by the time they're 16 or something. Not sure I'm doing this right. Yeah, for instance, this guy. I was not aware who I was playing, but now that I've looked up his profile, he is probably something like 16 now, and he is much, much higher rated than I was at that age. And probably has been a GM for a couple of years. If I take on e2 here, my position will be kind of acceptable but boring. If I don't take on e2, I might be worse. So I'll go with this. This is not the most exciting approach, but it should be fine. I like h3 because the one way white sometimes exerts pressure in these positions is by playing. Whoa, I don't really like this decision. This is an interesting decision, but at first I thought this was just some kind of a misclick, but if I take on e3 here, I have trouble defending the d6 pawn, actually. I might have to sacrifice it. Or maybe I have a tactical way of solving those issues. Because if I went rook d8, he goes rook a d1, and then he goes c5 if I go rook a6. But if I first attack the pawn on c4 and then play rook c6, he goes rook d1, I go rook d8. Now I am prepared to meet c5 because I have rook takes c5 in reply. So now I'm doing fine. He should still go bishop g4 because my bishop is a lot better than his bishop here. Yeah, and people are saying that he has become a GM at 14 and change. This was my impression as well. This is roughly the age when he became a GM. And you would objectively you would like to take on g4 here, but then he goes rook d5 and starts. It gives him such a wonderful square on d5 for his rooks that I'm going to. Whoa! What am I doing? Yeah, I'm just not paying any attention. And just like that, I'm basically lost. Because, yeah, I just kind of tuned out there for a second, and I can more or less resign because the rooks come in. As mentioned, kids today are very strong. Also, it pays to think about your moves when you're playing chess, but yeah, him spotting that this idea even existed is quite nice. Although objectively, I think he was probably better off starting with bishop takes e6 and only then doubling on the f-file. Because he gave me a lot of outs. I could have taken with the on e6 with the king and would have been perfectly fine. I just, as usual, I kind of immediately realized what was wrong with what I was doing the moment I released the piece. But... And he is, once again, he is giving me a lot of hope here. I don't think he is converting this particularly cleanly. I'm not sure about e4 check. This may be a mistake. I probably should have taken on a2 first. But he generally, I think he's given me a lot of hope there with the way he approached the endgame after d5. Might still be winning though, because just play rook a7 here is what he should do. He should try and keep g and h instead of, yeah, this is the correct approach. I still have some hopes left because my pieces are now very, very active. And my pawn is a lot closer to the promotion point than his are. So he will have to pay constant attention to it. But obviously white is still much better. I don't know if he's winning or not. Might be. And there is now a disconnect on my screen. I really hope this game doesn't end on a disconnect because he played it really well. And it would be kind of daylight robbery for me to win by disconnect. I'll try offering a draw here in case he comes back. No, I do answer some non-premium questions from chat if I find them interesting. Yeah, my apologies to Mr. Firuza. He played a very good game and then his internet failed him. That was not my intention. I did press the draw button there, but he just didn't reconnect in time. And yeah, there's nothing you can do. You just get awarded a full point. But yeah, well played to him. I had some drawing chances here, but in general, probably still winning for white. Let me just once again have a look through the list, see if I am missing something I absolutely have to accept. Feels like it's only fair if I play Pyramid Misab. How do I deal with losses? Not well these days, GMarian. Not well at all. Wish I knew what I was doing here. How long is this Banter Blitz? I'm not entirely sure, Panoredo. No less than 2 hours. Might stretch a bit longer, but probably something between 2 and 2.5 hours. Yeah, this bishop on e6 is the one problem black has. It's a bit stupid, but his structure otherwise is very, very solid. I'm not sure what I think about this g5 idea. It definitely makes some sense, but I'm not, like, if I actually put my mind to it, I think it's reasonably easy for me to stop this kind of play. I can just play g3 and then h4 if he plays h5. And that should quite efficiently stop this type of push on the king side. Can someone please give him a soft tissue, says White Shark. It's not gonna help very much because it's not a cold. It's my hay fever month. Basically, end of my May, start of June is when I get like violently allergic to pollen, and this year is the worst year in a while in terms of just how bad my allergies are. And yeah, a soft tissue would kind of solve the problem for about 30 seconds, and then it would reappear. Knight a4 is, well, I mean, it's heading over to c5. I don't really get you not getting this move, Egan. It wasn't doing anything on c3, and it's very, very well positioned on c5. And if he takes, I now have the b file to hope to develop some initiative on. Although I'm not entirely happy about things that happened in the center. Black is probably doing quite well. That is not to say that I like my position or that my previous play was good. But generally getting the knight from c3 to c5 is one of the very few proactive things that White can and I believe should be doing in these types of positions. I am significantly worse though because yeah, my previous play was just not fast enough and I did not stop the counterplay with f4 as I promised. And the fact that I'm actually seriously considering playing king d2 should be a very good indication of what I think about my position. King d2 is not a move anyone should ever have to make. Knight takes d4 was losing for two different reasons, Galactic. Yeah, in Galactic actually, it wasn't Galactic. It was probably somebody else who was asking that, yeah. And Galactic pointed out one of the two reasons why Knight takes d4 lost after I played Knight a4. No apologies needed. I mean, I understand what you're saying. It's annoying to listen to me sniffling, and I apologize for that. And I actually had some tissues lying around, but I forgot to bring them over when I sat down to do to start the blitz session, and now I probably will not get up until the session is over. So the other losing line I could take on d4, and after queen takes a4, bishop b5 would capture the queen. Blah blah. I can show it after the game. Why is he giving me the f6 pawn? Is the question I have to ask myself. Is this some kind of a clever trap? Seems like it was some kind of a trap. I don't know if it was the best, best play black had available in that position, but it seems like my opponent actually thought this through and felt this was required. And it's not bad, I have to say. It's not bad at all. I might go as far as to describe it as good even. The issue with this move, I would have made it much faster and I would be a lot happier about it if not for the fact that if I take after d4, I thought d4 was the expected response. This I like a lot better for white because my pieces actually come out of the corner. He has rook takes e2 here. I keep on missing stuff. Rook takes e2 is very strong here. I very much like the way my opponent is playing this game. I might be able to make a draw, but I very much like the way my opponent has played this game from a certain moment onwards. But yeah, knight a4, if you take on d4, as Galactic correctly said, you can take on e6, but you can also play bishop b5 and the queen is gone. But I should have done something different somewhere here. I'm not entirely sure what. Maybe my entire previous play was just wrong. Maybe you do need to have the queen on f3. Because I think in general they start by playing queen f3 here and then they go knight g2. And that of course stops all this counterplay with g5 and f4. But I thought that I could maybe save on the queen f3 idea and keep it on g1 because I was kind of hoping to use it on the queen side later on. And then maybe g5 f4 is just fast enough. I assumed it wasn't, but maybe I was just wrong. Yeah, and well played to PMMS. Another white game. Unbalanced. White OP. Haven't played a Squatch in a while. I still feel this is a very interesting opening, but it's a bit too much work. All the potential move orders here are very, very confusing. Yeah, this is one of the more critical lines of the entire opening. If he takes on c3 here and plays d5, this is, I believe, one of the more theoretically heavy positions of the entire opening. And I haven't actually studied them in any kind of a detail. And I only have to hope that neither has he. Is the Petrov wrongly labeled a drawish opening when I see so many sharp positions emerge from it, says Adam Farrell. I think this is true about many, many openings in general. That there is this label that this is boring and only leads to boring positions with black trying to trade everything off and make a draw. And it's true in some part, but as with every other opening, you can of course aim for different things when playing it. Have I blundered a piece here or something? Whenever something like this happens, I get very panicky. But I don't think I blundered a piece. And also I think you sort of your personality stamp gets you know, you can influence the way the opening shapes up. And as for instance in the case of Petrov, you can approach it in many different fashions. And for instance, the way Fabi has been playing it, he still gets occasionally these types of positions he got yesterday or in that game against Danish in the Bundesliga finals, where he has to defend some slightly boring endgame, which occasionally he might even lose. But he's not playing it only to make a draw, for sure. Well, exchange French is slightly different because it is white in most cases just saying opening advantage, never heard of it, don't really care about it. Let's just simplify and not play a complicated position at all. And this is of course also you know, it's a very large generalization to say that about the exchange French. The exchange French can also be played as a very complicated strategic opening. But in general, taking on d5 in French is a kind of a declaration of intent, saying, I am not very ambitious today. I have very little idea about what's going on the board here. But my general feeling is I am not doing very hot. Because despite, you know, a somewhat poor structure, this knight on d5 is just such a monster. And black has such fantastic control over the light squares, and my bishop on c3 is so dead in general that I would probably prefer to be black here than white if I had a choice. And it's actually quite awkward for me to even make a move, because knight f4 against most moves I can make is very awkward here. I'll go actually kind of the whole hog and hard stop knight f4 here, because it was just annoying me in every single variation I was trying to calculate. If black wants equality, I think he can just take on c3 and play rook d5. And I don't think he is ever worse in positions like that. Yeah, as expected. Bishop d4, I couldn't really find any good reply to knight f4 even. It just seemed to me like it wasn't really going anywhere for me there. I don't like some of the recent decisions my opponent has taken though, although I obviously completely missed the fact that rook e8 was a move, which is stupid. And yeah, I should have paid more attention. I could have started with queen b4 check there. Yeah, this is very stupid from me. I have not really been playing particularly well in the last couple of games, I have to say. Very unimpressed with my decision making. Yeah, it feels very counterintuitive to give up the knight on d5 for the bishop on c3, but the thing about that move is that it forces white, more or less, to undouble the c-pawns, because I can also not tolerate the rook on d5, and I will have to take it, and then black improves his structure. But yeah, obviously, like from a purely aesthetic point of view, the idea of giving up the knight on d5 for the bishop on c3 feels extremely weird. Feels like I should be lucky with a draw here. I just don't believe I'm better. I could try continuing, but I think, you know, I'm kind of playing to lose if I continue. Yeah, I don't know why I'm doing this to myself. I generally don't really go for these completely unobjective ideas. And I think I am now going to lose this game. Should have repeated. I think a5 just wins here. Or this. This is kind of less winning. I thought a5 was just winning for him, but... yeah, this probably is a perpetual of some sort. Yeah. Not really knowing the theory of the line might have hurt me there a bit. I suspect maybe it's more precise to start with rook c1 here instead of bishop b2. Which would give me a tempo. And also, I think maybe the very large point... it seems a very large point of rook c1 is that whilst the queen is on h4, black cannot castle queenside, and it actually helps white in terms of all the potential endgames and so on, if black castles kingside here. So bishop e2 may have been a very serious inaccuracy here. I am in Hamburg and it's really, really hot. I'm not enjoying... you know, I'm only wearing this polo, but I'm surrounded by lights so that you get the best possible picture quality. And combined with like 27 outside, the very, very warm lights of the studio are making this a somewhat uncomfortable experience. Okay. Let's try and raise our game a little bit. Because I really did not like the way I played the last 2 or 3 games here. And yeah, well played to my opponent in the previous game. I remain very sharply critical of what I did in that game, but he played well. What is this? I'm very tempted to say, what fresh hell is this? Yeah, okay. It's probably some kind of a take on the Mora Gambit, right? But I'm not sure if having the queen on a5 is so hurtful to my chances. And I don't think bishop g5 is what they normally do in the Mora. Let's see if I'm completely wrong and this is a much better version of the Mora for white. Okay, if he has to go bishop d2, then I'm, you know, immediately a lot less worried about things. You need a Waters player like Krzysztof Silecki, yeah, maybe. Or for people to stand over me with huge, giant fans and fanning me over. Wouldn't that be a dream solution to the whole heat wave issue? Yeah, I don't think this is the best Mora ever, but I also don't think bishop d2 was forced. He should have played more energetically somewhere out of the opening, because here it just feels like, once again, I should try and not blunder e5 followed by knight d5. I think it might be kind of useful for my health to not blunder some kind of a shot like that and lose. New Mora meta. Indeed, Peter made me sub. People have been cutting 2c3 for 4 bishop g5. Sometimes even 2 copies of 4 bishop g5. To get, you know, a more consistent, to draw it more consistently. I think my opponent is trying to calculate knight e5, knight e5, knight d5, and so am I. And currently my thinking is I'm winning there, but if he goes for it, we will see if my calculations were true or not. This is way too slow. I mean, he might win the e5 pawn back, but I don't really care about that one bit. I'm very, very prepared to return it, to just finish my development. And then I should be doing very well. Knight e4 is a move he should try here. Hoping maybe that he takes on f6 and goes queen e4, and then there's some kind of initiative on the king side. But I should be able to handle it. Immediate knight g5 I like less, because I think if he goes knight e4 now, I can actually maybe even take and play f5. And yeah, once I get this move in, it makes a great deal of difference. I used to be a soccer fan, but in all honesty, I probably cannot count myself as one anymore. Thanks for tuning in, Log11, and yeah. Always happy to see you guys here. Here I feel like I'm just completely winning, because he has to play queen e2, I even get one more tempo to play knight d4, has to play queen d1, then I can take on d2, and, well, he resigned slightly prematurely, but after queen d1, takes. I mean, knight b3 wins more material, but even if I don't have knight b3 and I can just play queen d6 followed by bishop c6, I have 2 extra pawns in the center and a better position. I don't have a pick for the NBA Finals, but I can always just copy what Jan says and look clever. And Jan seems to think that the Golden State are huge favorite. Oh, well, hugely favored for the title, is what I wanted to say. I hope I did not get that wrong, but I don't think I have. I play a very decent amount of Hearthstone, Bill George, but this month I kind of gave up on laddering because there was just too much kind of life and chess stuff in the way, and I played up very, very large volumes of Arena. So I'm stuck kind of yo-yoing between ranks 5 and 3 because I couldn't really find anything that I really liked playing, and I think without a deck that you feel extremely comfortable with, if you want to push for Legend, it just becomes a grind, and it just becomes a question of putting in a tremendous amount of volume. Like with a win rate of 55%, from 5 to Legend it will take you like 200 games. Maybe more, probably more, judging by my previous experiences. And if you're also not particularly enjoying it, it doesn't feel like a very good investment of your time. And I don't really like, my life will not be significantly more fulfilled if I become Legend this season. Or any season. Because I am not going to be a competitive Hearthstone player, ever, I feel. I will watch some games, Stairway to Mate. Not all of it, but I will watch some games. I think b3 is a bit too timid. If he played a3, he should have gone b4. And one large difference between b3 and b4 here is that now he doesn't have knight d2 b3 to protect this pawn on d4, which means that the only reasonably comfortable way to protect this pawn is to play bishop b2, which allows me to play knight f4. And knight f4, of course, is a move I would very much like to make. His position is still solid, but it would have been a lot better if he could play knight b3 and the bishop on c1 would prevent me from landing on f4. And now I have to figure out what to do with this activity that I suddenly generated. There are some very fanciful ways of continuing here, but I don't think they work, sadly. Like, I can take on h3. I'm really tempted to take on h3 here, but I don't think it works. This is the regrettable bit about these shows, that let's do it anyway, who cares? Instead of talking about how sad I am that this doesn't work, let's just do it. He should play knight h2 here, and it holds. But I still, I believe, get enough positional compensation for my stuff. Because I will pick up on h3, and I also win the d4 pawn in the process. But he should be in time to play knight h2 and either queen f3 or queen g4 there. Actually, the more I look at this position, the more I think that I probably did it a disservice by calling it crap and not working. It might actually work. Because after knight h2, I can take with the knight on d4, which is something I did not appreciate originally. Creating a threat of knight d2 and then bishop takes b2. And it's actually very, very awkward for him to meet. This move I completely missed. But yeah, let's see how good this is. Okay, we always start with this. He goes knight e3. And now yeah, I have a very beautiful continuation here. I don't know if it wins or not. But it is. No, it doesn't work. That is very regrettable. I wanted to go knight takes d4. He takes with the bishop, I take with the bishop, he takes with the knight, and I go rook c5 with the idea of rook g5 mate. But he has queen g4 at the end of that variation. He is currently not threatening anything, but I need to start creating threats of my own, which is the biggest issue I have. And he kind of is threatening to play knight g5 with a draw. Maybe not even a draw. This is all kind of upsetting. This is a very good reaction by my opponent. Very good, solid reaction. This is highly annoying. People are giving me very helpful hints in chat. I really wish I hadn't seen that. Yeah, this is why I should never look at chat when I'm playing, because now I feel like if I do this, I will be cheating. It's kind of allowed in Hearthstone. I've seen some, like, if we take Hearthstone as an example, and it doesn't actually work because he has knight g5 anyway, but I mean, it's better than everything I was trying to do. There are some very nice chat lethals in Hearthstone. Like, I've seen streams where the streamer is, I think the most famous one you can find the video of it is some incredibly complicated coin-related lethal that Saviz almost missed, and then his chat told him it's there. I think it was with Galivix on board. It involved getting tons and tons of coins from Galivix and casting something weird. So it's okay for a Hearthstone streamer to execute something that the chat tells him to do. But in chess, I still feel very, very dirty when I don't spot something and my chat does. Queen h4, queen g4 doesn't seem to improve my situation greatly. So I'll just go with this. I can also start with knight takes h3 and knight f4 check, I guess. I'm actually misplaying it. I should have taken on d4 at some point. This is wrong because after rook f1 now he has bishop takes g7. I should have taken on f1 on the previous move. It was much stronger. Knight f4 check was just a horrible, horrible blunder. Yeah. It's kind of fair though, because I didn't see the whole beautiful idea, and as mentioned, I don't feel very comfortable playing stuff that was suggested to me by people in chat. And now I will lose on time because I spent so much time debating the ethics of that situation. Let's offer a draw and see if it gets accepted. I'm objectively just winning here. Yeah, that was a very interesting position, and yeah, thanks for to all of you kind people in chat for that suggestion. But I should have found it myself. I was so concentrated on using the 5th rank here, and it actually, I think, works if not for the fact that he has queen g4, and I cannot distract his pieces enough to give mate here. And I was already kind of half considering doing something stupid like e5 here, to which I think he goes knight g5. And I was wondering if I can play something like queen h6 here. Actually, this wouldn't have been so horrible either, because even queen h4, I thought he has queen g4 here, but as I now realize, I can take on g5 because I have this fork here. So e5 wouldn't have been stupid. And this is what I would have played on my own. But then I made the arguably the ethical mistake of looking up, and I saw that beautiful suggestion of rook c1. And yeah, of course, if I just take on f1 here, I more or less win, because compared to the game, after bishop takes g7, I take on f2, he takes on h3, I take on g7, and instead of being a pawn down with a lot of pawns, I have a rook and like 4 pawns for rook and knight. White is also completely discoordinated. So yeah, this is kind of resignable. And thanks to my opponent for not flagging me. I mean, I am objectively winning in the final position, but I would have lost with 13 seconds against 42, obviously. Okay. Thought I saw Mr. Dodgy there in the list somewhere, but I can't find him anymore. There he is. Feeling more tired than I expected to feel after only an hour and 40 minutes in. So we might not go too far beyond 2 hours today. Yeah, that was your pick, Diary of a Madman. Yeah, he definitely could have flagged me, Eduardo. I wouldn't have begrudged him that. It was an interesting game, and it wasn't his fault that I tanked for 2 minutes in a position where a tactical solution existed. So yeah, there would definitely be no hard feelings if he just decided to win that game on time. Mr. Dodgy means business today. Going for some kind of a mating attack on the king's side. Might even work for all we know. I don't like playing knight g2 because then he can play bishop g5. Should I just play d4 and pretend none of this is happening? I might not be very successful pretending that. Not very seriously, Big Bad Wolf. I haven't started yet. That's a very helpful move for me, obviously, rook f7, because one thing, you know, the way his pieces were positioned and the way my pieces are all on the other side of the board One thing I was kind of worried is actually getting mated. Worried about, and now the queens are coming off, and getting mated will become a lot more difficult. Yeah, then I has to go to d7, I suppose. And now we kind of enter the new phase of this game where I need to find a plan of action. Find some, homes for my pieces, because he probably wants something like knight f8, g6. There's also some danger for me of blundering something connected with d5, d4, which I'm currently trying to evaluate. Because I would like to play g3, but then after d5, I might actually lose material on the king side. g3, king g2 is a very attractive kind of a positional maneuver, but d5 worries me. d5 is very ugly, but if it wins a full pawn, the fact that it's not particularly attractive aesthetically might not be very important. I mean, d5 is not ugly, but d5, d4 is, which is the full point, the whole point of playing d5 here. But I think I'll go with this anyway. It gives my pieces some squares in the resulting positions. Yeah, and if he decides not to do it, then I have some more time. And also, in particular, I wanted to hint at king g2 and rook h1 so that he plays g7, g6. And if he plays g7, g6, the knight doesn't come to g6 later in the game, which is something I wanted to kind of safeguard against. The knight might come to h7 though, which is what he is now hinting at. I quite like how he's playing this game, I have to say. This knight on b3 is just completely misplaced. Just doesn't do anything at all. And in many positions it's actually in the way, which is the most annoying part about it. It gets in the way. I will now once again offer him this pawn sacrifice, because if he plays d5 here, I can only go back to d2. He goes d4, I have to play bishop f2, he takes on g5. But then at least my pieces become, slightly more active. And from this moment on, I'm kind of constantly tempting him to play d6, d5, because at least then the knight on b3, there is this square on c5 I can hope to occupy later. For instance here, once again, he made some progress by picking up this pawn on g5, but at least this knight is no longer dead, which was my kind of biggest worry about my position, was that this knight wasn't playing. And it's very much back in the game now. Knight d4 seems interesting. Knight c5 also looks quite sensible here. Once again, I'm kind of worried I'm blundering some tactic, but I don't think I actually am. And very importantly, if he takes with the knight on g5 here, e5, e6 just is very, very awkward for him. And here I can win material by playing knight e6. But it gets kind of tricky. The question is, do I have anything better though? I might not have anything stronger than this anyway, which is why I went for it. But this position is a lot trickier than I originally thought. Originally, I just felt I must be close to winning here, but it's nowhere near as obvious as that. He can take with the king and then go knight g5. This I do not like. I think it was hugely important for him to preserve that knight that he just traded away. What I liked the most was knight takes f8 and then knight e6, blocking the e5 pawn, and he has a lot of counterplay with this active rook on f2. I think he kept an incorrect light piece. I think keeping the knight was a lot stronger than keeping the bishop here. I don't know why I was so happy about this e6 move. Rook c6 actually covers it. Or rook c5 even. Rook c5 might be stronger than rook c6. Because after rook c6, yeah, that was a very, very premature resignation. He can play rook c5 here, followed by rook e5. The e-pawn doesn't actually queen. I am better, but I am far from winning yet. That was kind of Svidler-esque resignation right there. Okay, let's say 3 more games. Because I do feel slightly groggy, and I also still have to record the video on the Carlsen Aronian game. That game really felt like it's good enough for us to break the pattern and record a video about. Chess is hard, but resigning is easy. That is extremely true, Mr. Dodgy. Or as Zalay would say, chess is hard. Spelled A-H-R-D. How do we refute b3? Or in more general terms, do we refute b3 or do we pretend it's not there? We're not in the business of pretending something is not there when it's there. This is horrible, should not be attempted, and probably will lead me astray. Already now, I think after queen b1, I'm a full pawn down. I should at least have played f5 first. Yeah, if my opponent spots queen b1 here, I think I'm kind of lost. Nice. Nice. Giving pawn odds to players who are strong already. This is what this stream is all about. Okay. I was trying to kind of... The issue is that white will, if I don't blunder this pawn, white will play d3 and I will have to take on d3. So by starting with knight c6, what I was trying to do was I was trying to tempt him into playing d3 when my pawn is still on f7, because of course f5 is not a move you are particularly happy about making. But sadly for me, there are, you know, all these tactical issues with what I'm doing. I should still be able to mix it up a little bit. My position is not entirely hopeless here, but yeah, objectively this is clearly not great. You should not be playing this opening in such a cavalier fashion. Yeah, this I actually have decent positional compensation now, somewhat surprisingly. This is not horrible at all. But, you know, regardless of how this game pans out, 96 was clearly a blunder. I spotted the reason why it loses sort of more or less immediately as usual, but I'm not going to pretend this is all going according to plan. Yeah, no, Peter made me sub. This is not all planned. This, I thought, just loses, right? And if he castles, I'm kind of tempted to go for like style points with bishop h3. Although, of course, I can take on e2 and I'm completely winning, but bishop h3 is a nicer move to make. Might not be entirely correct, though. I might have to step on my own throat there. Yeah. Hang on a second. Now let's go for it. I mean, come on. Because I think I found a way to justify it. My problem with it was if he takes queen g5 check, bishop g4, there I have no mate. But I think if he takes on h3, I can start with queen d5, which is a lot stronger. Yeah, he does have these options, but they should never be fast enough, I think. I'm just too dominant in the center and my pieces are just too active for him to hold here. If at some point you run out of delightful subjects, I have one question coming out of the blue. What do you think about Louis C.K.'s work? I think he is one of the better comics of this millennium, and the fact that all of it is now being kind of deleted is understandable, but on some level regrettable. I mean his work. I mean him as a person. You can have all kinds of opinions on, obviously, most of them uncomplimentary, and rightly so, but I still feel he as a comic has done a lot of good things. Yeah, this is once again something I kind of half remember from my childhood, my misspent youth, so to speak. And what I remember is this is very decent and at the very least quite playable for white, and maybe even just good. I think you're supposed to play bishop f4 here, if I remember this correctly. And then, if black allows bishop d6, he is very, very stilted in his development, and it's just not fun. And if you play d6 here, white wins the pawn back and has a very comfortable position. Do people still play chess in the streets of Russia? Not as much as they used to, I think, but it's you can still find people playing in parks for sure. Yeah, this is a kind of a very uncomfortable choice because d6 is boring, but I have a feeling that castle's bishop d6 could just be bad. And I don't really want to be playing a position which I believe to be objectively horrible. Not just risky, but objectively horrible. That's kind of stretching it a little bit for me. So we'll go with this unhappily. I played against a street hustler once when I was, I think, 15 or 16 years old. Somewhat unwisely, I gave the man odds. I think I told this story on air once, but basically what happened was I was already an international master and a decent chess player, and this was just some oldish guy in the street, and I knew that, I mean, he obviously can play. I'm not as naive as to expect, you know, a guy with his own chess set and his own clock who is playing all comers in the street to be bad. But I kind of knew objectively how good I was, and I thought, okay, you know, I should not be worried about this. And then he kind of took one look at me and I guess judged fairly correctly that I'm not a completely random person, and judged also that I'm probably somewhat proud of my chess skills, and suggested I should give him time odds. And I said why not, and gave him 4 against 5. And I lost 3 games on time. In all 3 I was better in terms of position, but I lost all 3 on time. And then I took about a year to give the money to him because when I came back next day he wasn't there, and I kept on coming back and he wasn't there. But eventually I tracked him down and I gave him his money. And yes, I am very well aware that playing money games without having the money on you is very, very poor form. I would not have done that in later years, but then, first of all, I was younger and a lot more stupid than later, and secondly, I did not really expect to lose. This position is really, really poor. It's a lot worse than I originally anticipated. Not that I expected it to be good, but it's just kind of horrible. He already, for instance, could have taken on d6 on the previous move and played some kind of an endgame where he's a pawn up. No, I don't mean poker. In poker, yeah, you sit down and you have to show the money, but there was a period in my life when I played billiards very, very seriously and for money. And in those circles, you don't generally have to show the money when you get to the table, and occasionally people would play with an empty pocket, and that was extremely frowned upon. Yeah, it's not refuted, the big bad wolf, but like the question has to be asked: what's your risk-reward ratio there when you're playing the Alekhine with black? and what are you trying to achieve. I have actually played the Alekhine once in a very important game. I used the Alekhine to beat Alexander Grishuk in, and I think it was the semifinals of one of those ACP Rapid World Cup, I think they were called, in Odessa. So I used it to beat Sasha and to get to the final, which I think I lost to Boris that year. And I did that after playing the Bunrati Chess Festival 2 years in a row. And both those years I had to play Alexander Baburin with white. So I had to prepare for the Alekhine. And both years I came away from an evening of preparation for that game thinking that I really don't understand why more people aren't playing the Alekhine. But that was basically because I kind of really badly needed to win that game against Baburin, because it's a weekender and you have to play every single white game you have in those tournaments sharply for a win. But if you're not really pressed to immediately refuse it in the game, I think you will find a way to be, to have a stable small advantage there with white. I think my position improved. I think it's still not great at all. I also think this move is really, really horrible that I just made, because I kind of assumed that the knight has to take on e6, and of course it doesn't, it goes to f5. And now I'm in a lot of trouble. This was just a horrible, horrible oversight by me. I think the show needs to get wrapped up at some point, because I'm just playing poor chess at the moment. Objectively, my position is probably just lost right now. I can still hope for some swindles somewhere, but yeah, this is just bad. Just play queen c2, king takes g7, knight takes e4. It will be extremely difficult for me to even stop getting mated on the long diagonal. Queen e2 I like slightly less, but it shouldn't really matter a great deal. I mean, the difference is after knight takes e2, e4 here, white is not threatening to play queen c3 check, which gives me a tempo to... What am I doing? And now I missed knight d6. Yeah, we really should stop. This is just like unbelievably poor. I guess I'll play one more just to kind of wash the taste of this game off from my mouth, but yeah, that whole sequence. I didn't like my position after knight d4, but I don't have to kill myself by playing c5. It's just ridiculous. My brain is just kind of misfiring all over the place. Yeah, that would be a... Whoa, I was about to say that would be a nice kind of an rondo. In that we started with a caro and we could end with a caro. That's a really weird way to play the caro. Let's say I do not understand what's happening and just proceed from there. I guess this is all some kind of theory, judging by how fast my opponent is playing, and I obviously did miss that bishop e6 existed. Just kind of ridiculous. And now I will have to play some kind of an equal endgame, which is, once again, not what I wanted from what I wanted to be the last game of the session. Yeah, I'm very annoyed at myself right now. Let's try not doing that. Let's give our opponent a chance to become better and see if he takes us up on our offer. But in general, yeah, what I'm doing here is kind of dictionary definition of monkey tilt. And I should have stopped when I said I will stop. It would have been a lot healthier to just stop when I said I will stop, instead of continuing to punish myself. Nope. Yeah, the position is just bad now. And this is not really very surprising because I kind of knew what I was doing wasn't correct. And I went for it anyway simply because as mentioned, I was so disappointed with how I played the previous game that I wanted to do something different. Queen c5 is strong here, I guess, yeah? Because I was... Whoa, that's even better. Yeah, I'm just not a functioning chess player right now. I was trying to figure out why my opponent is giving me all these liberties, but rook e6 just loses to queen c5 check. I should just resign here. Because I'm a two pawns down here for no compensation whatsoever. Yeah. That's not the game. Sorry about that. That stream would have been a lot better if I finished it 20 minutes ago, to be honest. Let's talk about something pleasant. Yeah, well played, Chase Paw, but obviously, like I've already taken away the board because it was too painful for me to stare at it. But immediately after bishop takes f2 and bishop e6, I can play queen e2 and win the pawn back. And then there is a very, very balanced, more or less completely equal endgame, which I did not want to play. And once I chose to go for a very, very arbitrary position with very little compensation, I got punished severely by my opponent. So well played to him. I used to play this system against the King's Indian quite seriously. I won some memorable games in it, and then I lost a horrible, horrible game against Hikaru in the European Club Cup, and that kind of put me off that system for a while. I don't like this c5 idea in this particular setting because I think it gives me a very easy game on the king side if I know that the queen side is already closed. This is a good move though. Maybe I could have waited for a bit until playing g4. My biggest worry now is that he will somehow manage to play bishop f6 and bishop g5. This is what I should be playing against the most. Because the fact that my bishop on e3 is much better than his bishop on g7 is maybe the biggest part of why white generally is better in positions like this. And yeah, I need to somehow be... It's good for me that currently the pawn on h6 is hanging here, which is why bishop f6 is difficult to play. But I need to be on the lookout for that idea, and if I were my opponent, I would actually quite seriously consider doing it even at the price of a pawn. Because you need to get rid of that dark squared bishop and trade it for mine. But now I think I'm getting sort of a setup that you generally want in positions like this, where I will be able to stop that bishop f6 idea from ever actually giving my opponent anything. Yeah, this is going to be a, or at least it should be, if I do it correctly, an exemplary, kind of what I want to say, an illustration of how you break down setups like this. But I'm actually not sure that I know how you break down setups like this. I have a feeling I might have to start a second front here. Like, let's see what happens if I play h5 and then I play on the queen side. So h5, he has to play g5, then all of these pieces are dead. But also I've killed off my entire, kingside for the time being will not really exist on the board. There will be no kingside. And I will need to create enough threats on the queen side to then maybe once again remind him that the kingside exists. Do I have to stop b5 here or not? Also, can I stop b5 or not is maybe a larger question right now. Yeah, this is supposed to be extremely good for white. Blah blah, and I don't disagree with your assessment. I'm just saying that in particular in my current frame of mind, I'm not sure I can be, the best lector on the subject. But I think I still am in, reasonable enough control to show the basic ideas. The one thing that was worrying me was obviously not c takes b4, but queen takes a3. But I think I was doing well enough after queen takes a3. Here, yes, you don't have to be. Yeah, this is a very picturesque position. Once the files get open on the queen side, white of course wins very, very easily because of just how much space he has on the board. But kind of a bigger question is what happens if black just waits until I play b4 and plays b6, and how easy it is to break open such positions. And also the way it happened in the game, I was wondering about queen takes a3, but I think I'm doing quite well again after knight takes b5 here. Okay. We've detilted ourselves. Let's play one more. And we'll call it quits after that. My pleasure, Iron Chess Maiden. And when I say we've detilted ourselves, I am probably kidding myself, but I made an effort. Exactly, Buddha. What shall we play against the modern? What I'm doing is really not very ambitious at all, frankly. I was never really particularly worried about setups like this when I played the modern myself with black. It's not very, like, it's not completely harmless, but it's not really an attempt to refute the opening. I tried playing most things against the modern Beard's group of openings, Buddha, including Bishop g5, but I don't feel like I'm, in touch enough with what's happening there to play it right now. Kind of giving my opponent a lot of choices here just to see what he wants to get. C takes b4, of course, is the most obvious and the kind of the least offensive reply he has. But I feel like white should generally be slightly better here because he has more space and there are ways to make progress here for white, whereas for black you are playing a waiting game for the most part. This is actually kind of annoying for black in these types of positions, in particular when the queen is already on d2, because it's actually not that easy to unpin yourself. I'm not sure about this bishop b5 move, but it kind of occurred to me and it felt good, so I'm going with it, but I am still somewhat on autopilot here, and I have to question most of my decisions. Why would I say anything at all about Leela? Come on, people. I've already been shamed by my horrible lack of knowledge of all things Leela related. What else can I say? I used to be somewhat knowledgeable on the topic of British comics, but I don't feel once again that I'm very current on that subject. But like if I have to choose between Jimmy Carr and Frankie Boyle, I'll take Frankie Boyle any day of the week. Not that Jimmy is not funny, but Frankie, I think, is a national treasure and should be universally accepted as such. What does it say about my mental well-being that I want to play knight h4 and knight f5 in this position? The answer is nothing good. But I will restrain myself. I think I also created the threat of knight takes e5, which is a very nice geometrical idea, but yeah, my opponent was not going to give me that. Should I maybe just... Yeah, I don't know how many rooks I want on the board here. I think probably this is better. If only my knight was on e3 already, I'd be pretty much winning. But it's not. And it's actually not gonna get there in time, which is the more upsetting thing. Yeah. This is just not good. The thing is, the knight gets to c5, then he goes queen c7 and rook c8 in some order. It doesn't even have to be a specifically correct order. And then the pawn on c6 gets lost. And yeah, this is very, very upsetting. I don't like knight f4. The knight really has to come to c5 because, I mean, he cannot really allow the pawn on c6 to leave. Which is why I think knight f4 is a reasonably large mistake. Because he's leaving himself with the wrong pieces for what he's trying to do. And now he will have to run back, but I don't think he's in time anymore because I have knight d5 at the end of that variation. So him playing knight f4 basically gave me like two tempi. In a position where two tempi are exceedingly important. Did I say English? I meant, yeah, okay. If you want to nitpick, I am aware Frankie Boyle is not English. Trust me on this. The fact is not news to me. Yeah, I need to actually calculate here, which is a bit annoying. Whoops, 92, I'm blundering bishop g5. Ah! Did not really feel I would need to calculate again in this game, and now I have to. And I just blundered a full queen there, which got unnoticed, which is helpful. Good God, I'm in horrible shape. I mean, he could have played rook b8 there, and that would have been embarrassing. After rook b8, I may have still been doing okay, actually. I will show you in a second. It's very possible that I was still fine there. Very, very possible, but I want to give mate. Come on. Come on, dude. Give me that. Thank you. Okay. Okay, so if he goes rook b8 here, I'm probably still okay after rook takes c5. Maybe not better, but I'm probably still okay. He goes d takes c5 and I can play queen c4, and you know, this passer should make sure that I'm at least not worse. But yeah, blundering rook b8. Blundering rook b8 is a very, very good indication of just how, you know, sickly I am right now. It's just, I'm sorry you had to see that. Why not d7? Where? Why not d7 what? What could have gone to d7? Yeah, you can play, sorry, rook b8, you can play c7, but I don't think you can take the queen. I think this probably doesn't work because I will not be able to get through this barrier on c5. So I can play, instead I can play c8 queen. He just goes back to b8. And once again, after queen c6, I have some compensation. But what I achieved by this operation is I lost my pride and joy, my passed pawn on c6 for, not very much. And yeah, I should not be happy about it. Anyway, thanks for bearing with me. I did make some moves which weren't completely horrible in these 2.5 hours, but I also made a number of moves which I would really like to instantly forget. Nombringer says, just tuning in from New Zealand, what's wrong with Peter? Good question. Answers on a postcard, please. Peter is not in his right mind, I don't know. But at least we got this little bit of knight jumping in, which I think is a decent enough way to finish. And now I will do, as mentioned, I will switch in back to broadcaster mode, quote unquote, and do hopefully somewhat short video on the game that Magnus won yesterday against Levon, because it is a very, very good game and it deserves a video. And yeah, Rook c1 earlier was the move of the stream, and very fittingly for today's stream it was found by chat and executed by me, and then I managed to screw even that up. So yeah, well played Paul Borta. So yeah, I hope to see most of you tomorrow with our coverage of round 4 of Altibox Norway Chess. Continues to be an extremely strong, and like, to me as a professional, despite the whole 13 draws out of 15, it has been an interesting tournament, and every round there is something to talk about. There are definitely opening ideas I haven't seen before. There are decent fighting games. There's just not enough decisive results, but this is what you get when a field is this strong. So yeah, tune in for that tomorrow, and I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.